JT Shaver here with New Layer, and today we'll be taking an in-depth look at the Godox ML60. ML60 stands for Magnificent Light 60 watts, and I totally just made that up, but you definitely believed it. In this video, I'm going to be covering the basics of the ML60 like brightness, color accuracy, and fan noise, as well as comparing it against some other battery-capable COB lights like the Nanlite Forza 60. At first glance, they might seem nearly identical, but I did find a lot of little things that add up to a big difference. Up until now, the only Godox video lights that came with a case were the VL series, but since this light is geared more towards portability, it too comes with a case. It's semi-rigid and nicely padded, it has internal dividers, and it's pretty much what I would hope for from a case like this, with the one exception being the lack of branding on the outside. I know all my lights really well, but with the sheer number that I have, it is nice to be able to look at the case and know exactly what's inside at a glance. The case for the ML60 is a teeny tiny bit smaller than the Nanlite case, but the Forza 60 case is a little bit more well made. Inside the case you'll find the ML60 itself, the stock reflector, the battery grip / light stand mount, the NPF battery plate, two different lengths of locking DC power cables, the AC adapter and cable, as well as a V-mount clip that attaches to a light stand and a Velcro V-mount adapter to secure the AC adapter to that clip. The build quality on the body itself is really great, being made of all metal except for the buttons and dials on the back. There's really an indistinguishable difference in size between the Forza 60 and the ML60, but there is one thing about the form factor that I wanted to mention. The Forza 60 has a square form factor while the ML60 is a perfect cylinder. This really only makes a difference if you have everything taken off the light and you're setting it down, but the Forza 60 will stay put where the ML60 has a tendency to start rolling away. Because it is a cylinder, the ML60 almost looks like it could use Pro Photo style modifiers, but it is a smaller diameter, so that's just not possible. The battery grip for the ML60 is also the only mounting yoke it has, whereas the Forza 60 has a standalone mounting yoke because the battery grip does not come with the light. With the way they're designed, the ML60 is significantly shorter than the Forza 60 when the battery grip is attached because it has the batteries side by side instead of one on top of the other. This makes it better balanced for handheld use, so it's a little more comfortable, and the Forza 60 is just more prone to tipping when you set it on a flat surface. The battery grip on the ML60 uses locking cables instead of a permanent cable, and it also has a sturdier foot for setting it down and also a belt clip on the back of the battery plate. This was a really smart move by Godox because if you plan to use this light handheld a lot, you can separate the battery plate from the light and mount it somewhere else. So for example, you can mount the heavier batteries on your belt or somewhere else and have it separate from the light. That way the part that you're holding in your hand is just much lighter. On top of that, if you're using this light on a light stand with the AC adapter, you can just remove that part so that piece is just out of the way. Both battery grips have a battery level indicator, but the Godox grip is just more modular and sturdier. One other minor omission from the Forza 60 battery grip is the lack of an umbrella holder. I rarely, if ever, use umbrellas, but if you do, it's worth knowing. I already mentioned this, but maybe most importantly is that the ML60 comes with the battery grip, where the Forza 60 has it as an optional piece that costs $50. One last thing about batteries in general is battery life. You can calculate the estimated runtime simply by knowing the capacity of your battery and the wattage of your light. I did test this personally, and with two 6600 milliamp NPF batteries with the fan and the wireless receiver for the remote turned on, I got exactly 86 minutes out of this light. This is right in line with simply doing the math, so you should be able to reliably calculate the runtime on smaller or bigger batteries. As far as brightness goes, this light is right in line with other 60 to 80 watt COB lights. That includes the Godox SL60W, the Sokani X60, the Nanlite Forza 60, the Jinbei EFII, you get the idea. I measured the ML60 with my Sokani C800 and got 3040 lux, which is the equivalent of f4.5 at 1/50th of a second and ISO 100. All the lights I mentioned are within 1/3 of a stop of each other, so that shouldn't really be the deciding factor when you're trying to decide between these lights. I tested the ML60 with both batteries and wall power, and you get the same brightness regardless of the power source. Also, like all of its competitors, the batteries are not hot swappable, so once you remove one to change it out, the light will turn off. The only time you don't get full brightness out of this light is when you have the fan turned off. Being able to turn the fan off is a huge bonus in itself, but when you do that, you only get 50% of the max brightness, which is about a one-stop drop. You do also get a little bit longer runtime with the fan off. With the fan turned on, the ML60 follows in the footsteps of the SL Mark II series and VL series of Godox lights, meaning that it's extremely quiet. I'll play samples of the Godox SL60W, SL150W Mark II, and the ML60, as well as the Nanlite Forza 60, so you can compare them for yourself. I did boost the loudness of all of these clips the same amount, just so you can hear them better. So overall, you should have zero issues with fan noise using the ML60. The color accuracy of this light is exactly what you would expect from Godox nowadays. I got a CRI of 96.4 with R9, R13, and R15 values of 97.1, 98.7, and 97 respectively, which are all important for rendering skin tones and all exceptionally good numbers. I also got a TLCI of 97 and an SSI versus the D55 daylight standard of 73, which again is really good. I got a color correction number of 0.8 green, meaning this light has a slight magenta tint, but it's pretty subtle and LEDs green up over time, so I consider anything between 0.5 and 0.8 right in the sweet spot of what you want in a brand new light. If you want to see all the brightness and color accuracy measurements, I'll have a link in the description to my light comparison tool. It uses real-world measurements instead of manufacturer-provided specs, so you can fairly compare lights side by side from different brands, including the ML60 and Forza 60. Another very important thing to know about the ML60 is that it is not a Bowens mount light like every other Godox video light. The Forza 60 is not a Bowens mount either, but there are some things about the ML60 that makes it not quite as big of a deal. The Forza 60 is the only light in existence that uses its proprietary mount. Although Forza 60 specific accessories have gone down in price a bit, they are still relatively expensive. For example, their 24-inch softbox is anywhere between $89 and $179, and the grid that goes with it is an additional $30. The ML60 uses the Godox mount, which has been around for a while on the Godox strobes, and modifiers are just much more plentiful and more affordable. For example, the ADS60S that I have is a 24-inch octabox that comes with 2 layers of diffusion and a grid for just $49. It's super lightweight and just proportionally a good fit for this light. There's also the ADS65 and 85 from Godox, as well as some third-party options for the Godox mount. I did also get an email from Godox saying that they're changing out the tightening knob on the angle adjustment to an L-shaped one, just so you can get more leverage when tightening it down. I think the one that came with my light is totally adequate, and I haven't had any issues with sagging whatsoever. I guess it will be nice to have some peace of mind knowing that it won't sag even with bigger modifiers. Although, if you're using bigger modifiers, you're probably using the Bowens mount adapter, so you're going to be using the tightening knob on that rather than the light itself. Yes, both the ML60 and the Forza 60 both have Bowens mount adapters. The Bowens mount adapter for the Forza 60 attaches directly into the proprietary mount of the light itself, while the S2 Godox bracket clamps on securely to the outside of the light. The Godox S2 adapter is stronger than the adapter for the Forza 60. I did use a 48-inch softbox recently with my Forza 60 using the adapter, but it was pretty sketchy with how much weight was being put on it. The Godox S2 adapter is just beefier, so it can hold bigger modifiers, although that's not really the point of getting a small portable light like this. The Godox S2 adapter also fits most of the Godox strobes, so if you're coming over from the photography side of things, there is going to be some crossover in the accessories that you can use for both. When you do use the Bowens mount adapter for the Forza 60, you do have the native mounting yoke hanging off the light. You can use that to hang things like the AC adapter or a counterweight to whatever modifier you're using, but it could also just get in the way. You can take it completely off, but when you do that, you have a 1/4-20 threaded rod sticking out of the light still. With the ML60, you can remove everything from the body of the light, so it's really streamlined, even if you're using it with the Bowens mount adapter. The battery grip for the Forza 60 attaches directly to its native mounting yoke using a 5/8" standard receiver. The battery handle and mounting yoke combo for the ML60 attaches to the light using a 1/4-20 thread with 2 indexing tabs to make sure it goes on straight. Theoretically, that means you could also attach this light to something like a friction arm or a boom pole or really anything with a 1/4-20 thread. The handle normally attaches to that threaded hole, and that's where the batteries are normally mounted, but you do get the longer cable with this as well, so you can figure something out. Besides turning the fan completely off, the menu system for the ML60 also has a couple other features. There's 4 unique built-in special effects on the ML60, and there are some variations on some, so although it's not many, it does have what I think are some of the more useful ones like lightning, a flashing TV set, and a flickering light bulb. They're nearly identical to the offerings on the Nanlite Forza 60. You can also turn the internal receiver for the remote off to save some battery, so if you know you're not going to be using that, you can do that as well. The ML60 uses the Godox RCA6 remote, which is the same remote as the FV and SL Mark II series of lights. This light does not come with a remote, but if you do have some of those other lights, you likely have one you can use. Before I got my hands on the ML60, I was honestly kind of bummed that it was not a native Bowens mount light. I was also kind of skeptical about the modularity of this light because I thought more pieces were kind of going against how portable it was. Once I started testing it out, I didn't necessarily change my mind, but I can at least understand why Godox made the choices they made with this light. Smaller and lighter Godox-mount modifiers are probably what the majority of people want to use with this light, and being able to separate the batteries from the rest of the handle was a great idea. This setup with a 24-inch modifier works really well even on cheap light stands, but if you think you're going to be using 36 or 48-inch modifiers most of the time, there might be a better choice out there. The Godox ML60 comes in at $269 with the battery grip, while the Forza 60 is $289 without the battery grip. These two lights do almost the exact same job, but once you start adding the cost up for the accessories, it's really hard to beat the ML60. Overall, if you already have other Nanlite products, then the Forza 60 is probably what you want to get, but if you have any other Godox lights or Godox mount modifiers, then the ML60 is the better choice. If you're trying to decide between the Forza 60 and the ML60 as your first LED video light, you'll have to compare the ergonomic and functional differences as well as your budget to decide which one's best for you. I did also do an in-depth review on the Forza 60, so I'll have a link in the description and here as well if you want to check that out. So what do you think? Is the ML60 a viable alternative to the other more traditional COB LEDs? And do you think the ML60 or the Forza 60 is the better choice? Leave a comment and let me know because I reply to every single one. I'll have links to everything I mentioned in the description, and they are affiliate links, but it doesn't cost you anything extra and it really helps me create more videos like this. I do gear reviews, lighting setups, and other videos every week, so if you like that sort of thing, make sure you subscribe and follow me on social media because I post a lot of stuff there that doesn't make it to YouTube. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.